IVM.
Hello and welcome to a brand new episode of the Musafir Stories, India's very own travel podcast, where each week we share the journey of travelers in their own words and relive their experiences with you, our listeners.
Hey guys, welcome to a brand new episode of the Musafir Stories. On the podcast today, we have the super funny hosts of the podcast, Far From Fact, as they take us around some great day trips that are not too far from Mumbai. So fasten your seatbelts as we find out more. So with that introduction, we'd love to welcome the hilarious hosts of the podcast, Far From Fact, Keshav and Husein. Welcome to the Musafir Stories, guys. A pleasure to have you.
Hi guys, welcome to the Musafir Stories.
Thank you, guys.
It's like a dream to have you guys over because Seth and I keep listening to your podcast, especially when Seth works out in the morning. It's playing, so it's really nice to be like actually conversing with you guys rather than just being the silent listener when most of the time we are listening to your podcast. So we are really happy.
The feeling is mutual. We really, we've been talking about this for months now.
Yeah, it's been so long that we've seen a pandemic and a wedding also since the conversations began. So really glad to have you guys. But yeah, the intro we gave is quite short and I don't think we even heard from Husein in the meanwhile. So why don't you guys go ahead and introduce yourselves?
So I'm Husein, one half of Far From Fact. And we started, I think, in 2018. I'll give a quick introduction. The podcast is comedy, kind of just real world problems. We discuss stories that we find on the news. And Keshav and I talk about them. We have our own theories. That's the podcast. In my non-podcast life, I'm a chartered accountant. It's two very different personalities, but I enjoy living those two lives. And yeah, I'm just glad that I met Keshav many years back. And this friendship has now kind of, the podcast has become a very good medium for the friendship also to develop. And a lot of our stories in this episode will probably be about the things that we did together during the podcast as well. So over to you, Keshav.
So I, in my non-podcast time, I work as a brand consultant. I run a small brand design studio called Naidu in Punjabi. But I'm also, in my creative outlet, I'm also trying to be a screenwriter. That's something I'm pursuing as a new interest. The podcast is definitely something that brought us closer, like Husein said. The way we started also was because we used to geek out on podcasts that we were listening to. And then, we were exchanging notes on the kind of shows we were enjoying. We'd share those. And then somewhere it just became one, hey, should we try this? Should we, why not? We would also do these weekend treks or trips or, just go around the city or go somewhere. And it wasn't like we'd do it every weekend. We'd just do it randomly, suddenly when the weather's nice. Mm-hmm. Hopefully we'll have some stories today.
Yeah, really, really looking forward to this. And yeah, we have two Mumbaikers on the podcast today. So really looking forward to hearing from you guys. And even in terms of the itinerary, we decided that it'll be a little hatke, if I may, for this episode of the podcast. We're not doing the touristy itinerary where somebody from outside of Bombay would come and spend 2-3 days, do your gateway of India and your beaches and your museums and art and Bollywood and whatnot. It's not that type of an itinerary. We thought we'll do it a little hatke. So why don't you tell us a little bit more about what we're going to be talking about today, Husein and Keshav?
Cool. So I'll try and quickly summarize, Keshav, and then you can jump in.
Yeah.
Now, I think the theme that I think we thought would make a lot of sense is also it will kind of reflect our relationship. Like I said in the beginning, we've are close friends. We meet very often. We also share a lot of the things that we do. So if, like, for example, I would go one weekend with Sakina, who's my wife, and we would go and explore something new. Immediately, I think Keshav is the first person I would call up and tell, hey man, you should check this out. It's a very fun thing that we did. So that's, I think we will try and stick to that theme throughout the episode. These are places that we've, in some cases, both of us have done a day trip or something like that to these places. Or else it's just something that living in Bombay, I've realized that it's such a nice side of the city that someone who's just visiting for 2 or 3 days may not have the liberty to do. But if you get the time, you should definitely do it.
Or if you travel to Bombay for work, or if you do repeated visits, so maybe in your 3rd or 4th trip, you can start digging deeper.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
Yeah,
Sounds like a plan. Looking forward to this because I think we are pretty much in, I wouldn't say exactly very familiar with Bombay. Keshav, we have been there a couple of times now, so we have done the usual stuff, the
very touristy stuff.
So we have covered that off.
Right.
So maybe it's a very ideal episode for us to listen to also when we are visiting Bombay next time, so we can check off a few of these, perhaps day trips you could call them. Yeah, so we'll figure that out during the course of the conversation. But I'll hand it over to you guys now to talk us through some of these more offbeat places in Bombay that we'll be covering off on the podcast today.
So we'll start with Sanjay Gandhi National Park, Husein.
Yeah.
It's I think one of Bombay's best kept treasures, I would say. It's not a secret. Everybody goes there, enjoys the park. It's a forest. I think calling it a park is underplaying it. And I think it's looked after by the forest people. I don't know. That's not their official title. What are they called? Forest department. Yes.
Okay, nice. And what are the things that one can do here?
There's many things, right? You can, something as cliched and touristy as going for a boat ride.
Oh, okay.
Something as basic as that, like, because lots of people go there for that, so
Right.
it's a fun boat ride. Or like, you can go looking for animals and birds.
Oh, okay.
So you can see you'll see deer like it's nothing. It's very, very common. In fact, there are morning walkers there who are so jaded, they don't even look at the deer.
Oh, God.
Like the deer are more interested in them than they are in the deer. So that happens a lot. So it's depending on when you go, day part or day, or weekend or weekday. It feels different.
Yeah, feels different. Right?
And it's a mountain range, really, right? It's got different access points.
Oh, okay.
There's so many parts to it. I think Husein, maybe you want to jump in and talk about the part that we went to.
Yeah. So also when Keshav said that morning walkers and that kind of stuff, I think what I have taken back when I visited it, and I am hating myself because I did not visit it until I think maybe 2 years back. That's how long I've lived in the city and I never went there. And when I went there, it really blew my mind. So your understanding of Mumbai, of the city, is either, it'll be like a crowded Crawford market or just crowded streets, people always pushing and rushing and all of that. And you go to this part of the city and it's unbelievable that such a forest exists so close to home. That was my biggest realization. And the parts that Keshav is talking about, I think 80-90% of the crowds that visit the forest do only that. Like they go there and they will see the common access points that you can either take a walk at, or I'm sure there'll be some sort of snack counters and stuff like that also. A bit of it is touristy, where it's made for the mass there's, I think, some toy train ride and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So I think a large percentage of people who visit do that. But beyond that, the quality of that forest, I think is as good as the deepest, densest parts of the Western Ghats.
Oh.
The diversity of animals, birds, insects, all of that. You go a little deeper, there are different trail routes that they've also created. Then Keshav was talking about the mountains. So they are the caves, I think the Kanheri caves, right?
Yep.
The Kanheri caves, yes.
Kanheri caves. So those are, I think, Buddhist caves that are, I don't know how many years old, but very, very old. And there's a lot of rich culture and history in those parts as well.
It's an ASI protected site. I think a lot of this information might have, given that it's a lockdown, many things changed. For example, I don't think the toy train is flying right now, for
Right.
example.
Yeah.
Or I don't think the caves are open. You can go to the park, but you can only go at certain hours. So all the information that we are sharing, of course, will vary given that,
Yeah, the COVID
the city went in
Right.
COVID situation, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And I'm so sorry, Keshav, that the toy train was shut that day.
Yeah, I was gutted.
That is the main
I was
thing you went
gutted.
there for.
I was gutted. I had taken all the candy. I was hoping to find some kids.
Oh God. But yeah, right to your point, right, that this is apparently one of the most visited parks, not just in Mumbai, but in the world. I don't know, they had some crazy figure that they get 2 lakh visits per month, year, I don't know, whatever it was, but apparently it is one of the most visited parks in the world. And
Oh, yeah?
even the Kanheri caves that you were speaking of, 2,400-year-old caves, I believe, and they served as basically both
Shelter, right?
monks used to live there as well, right? So almost like hostels of back in the day, I guess. And no wonder they're I mean, even in terms of the work that's been done within those caves, right? I believe a lot of sculptures, some paintings, and then obviously the stupas and
Some
things
very
like
nice
that.
frescoes, yeah.
So all of that is there as well. You probably can make it into a longer itinerary, or perhaps just an itinerary solely focused on the caves in themselves. There's so much of that to check out. So you can definitely do that. And not to mention the little trails within the park, right? There's so many different trails outside of or beyond these more touristy spots that you folks mentioned. And I also believe there are, I don't know if it's right now or in the past, there were like safaris as well aimed at the wildlife. I don't know if there is wildlife beyond the deer you're speaking of, but apparently there used to be safaris as well.
No, man, it is so one amazing fact. And sorry, I'm hijacking this, but I was dying to talk about it. But this park has the highest density of leopards
Oh, really?
in the world. The world, yeah.
Oh
and
my
these
God.
are wild leopards. So that also, I think, talks about just how healthy that ecosystem is. Because it's you need predators for any ecosystem to be healthy and functioning.
Right.
You need predators. So the fact that there are so many leopards, I think in that area, I don't know how many square kilometers this park is, but there are about 40 or 42 leopards. That's what the statistics say. And one of the reasons why there's such a high density is because they feed on stray dogs. Because the city has such a so much garbage, so much kind of waste, etc., many stray dogs, and that becomes a very large part of the leopard's diet.
Oh, wow. Okay, that's interesting. and how far away is this from this city? Like,
Because we
yeah,
have to
it's
pinch
kind of
ourselves,
scary
like,
now.
Mumbai and all this you're speaking.
Yeah, people have seen leopards from their windows. It's
Oh,
that
God.
cool. And I've seen some. So on YouTube, if you look it up, there are some building societies that release CCTV footage, and they have CCTV footage of a leopard entering their lobby and just taking away a dog that was sleeping and stuff like that.
Oh, God.
So there is also like some commentary there about encroachment and how it's man versus wild a little bit.
Yeah.
But that's not for this show. But you can't talk about Sanjay Gandhi National Park and not talk about encroachment.
Yeah.
Right.
Apart from high rises that are coming on the periphery, there are, for years now, one of the greatest challenges for the park has been slums that are forming in and around.
Okay. Right.
So it is a massive challenge, and you'll be aware of it. If you go there, you'll kind of understand that there are ways to what you can do or participate or whatever. So it's not just a park or a tourist place. It's an active. They are working towards making it better.
Right.
And when you spoke about the Kaneri cave part, I just wanted to add a nugget there. If you go in the monsoon, the bonus is you get a waterfall.
Yeah.
Oh.
So it's this beautiful rock structure, right? It's all these massive monolith rocks that they've carved inside.
Right.
And you climb up, and in the monsoon, you get this beautiful waterfall that you can have a shower if you want to.
Oh, nice.
Wonderful. I mean, yeah, especially this part of India, right? The beauty is like tenfold, especially during the monsoons.
Right,
Yeah. So
yeah.
I think a good option might be to make a trip during the monsoon. And obviously, even in terms of the heat, it's much lesser during that time. So might make sense to make a trip during that time. But yeah, some really good nuggets there about the Sanjay Gandhi National Park as well as the Kaneri Caves complex within the park. Any other points about SGNP before we move on to the next point of interest?
I would like to just flag off that we've possibly not even covered 10% of what you can discover there, right? There are other access points. There's something called Yeur Hills, which comes from Thane or Thane and Mulund, from those sides. So those are parts that we've not explored. We would love to someday.
Yeah.
Right.
There's another part which is from Vasai, right? Nagla block, which is something we've done, and I think maybe we can talk about that.
Yeah, so it is just another access point, and for someone to I think understand just geographically what this park is. So you can think, so because Mumbai city is kind of a small peninsula on its own. It's an island that juts out. So Sanjay Gandhi National Park is one of the kind of ends of this whole Western Ghat corridor. So the forest actually extends along the entire Western Ghats. So this Nagla block is just one other entrance to the entire corridor.
Okay.
And when we went, I think we visited in monsoon, lots of beautiful butterflies. I remember we went for a very short trek. We could not spend as much time as we'd like, but beautiful insects. I remember seeing people with cameras and also those butterfly nets. I think they were people who were studying butterflies and insects, etc. So very similar in terms of the kind of what you would see in the Sanjay Gandhi National Park, the flora and fauna, but it was just another interesting access point to the entire forest, larger forest.
Okay.
Yeah, it also has a marshland part to it, which is because there's a creek that flows between these two parts of the park,
So one more thing before we move on to, I just want to make sure that when I spoke about the leopards, I think people's impression would be like, man, this is dangerous, and what about people? Will people be harmed? Is there like man-animal conflict? And surprisingly, the two they live in surprising harmony. There have been instances where the tribals who live in the forest, I think once in a while a child gets attacked or something like that, but that's a very rare occurrence.
Right.
Given the proximity of these two and given how often they come face to face, there's very, very less man-animal conflict, which is very cool. I find that very cool.
Yeah, even given the fact that there are so many people visiting this park on a yearly basis or a monthly basis, what we just called out. I mean, that gives a clear idea that the park is perfectly safe, and it does offer all these amazing, the animal part to it. Yeah.
And by the way, apparently the name of the toy train is One Rani. Keshav? Sorry, now I'm just picking on
Forest
you.
Queen. Nice.
Forest Queen.
Forest
Yeah.
Queen.
One forest. Okay.
Yeah. I read it as Van Rani first, and I was
Because
like,
one
doesn't-
Rani is not enough for me.
Yeah, I heard it as one ONE1.
Yeah, no, it's spelled as VAN, and I was like, Van Rani, that's a strange name for a train. And then I was like, okay.
A South Indian rapper name.
Yeah, so, continue on, guys. Where on would you like to take us after SGNP?
Yeah, so since we're talking nature, we'll just continue with the nature stuff. So it's a beautiful thing how flamingos visit Bombay. They used to visit for certain parts of the year. I think now a lot of them are just staying back more than 6-8 months. I'm not complaining. So there are a couple of places that you can go see flamingos. One is called the Sivri Mud Flats, which is inside the city. And now there's a new park that is not a new park really, it's a new access point called the Bhandup pumping station. And when I went there recently, I saw that the people there who are manning the place, the security, are again, they're wearing SGNP uniform, the forest reserve fatigues and all of that. So I'm guessing that they've decided to take on and protect other parts. So this is a mangrove, which is a huge mangrove actually on the eastern seaboard, on the eastern side of the city. And it's called the Bhandup pumping station or Bhandup bird sanctuary. And you can see a lot of birds apart from just flamingos. Flamingos, of course, are a great attraction around October, November, right up to December even. But it's the range of birds you can see. You can see fishing birds, you can see birds of prey, you can see there's a huge range of birds that you get to see in this one particular park. And in fact, any Sunday you go, you'll bump into at least 3 groups of bird watchers, with their cameras and their binoculars, and it's an active hub for bird watchers.
Yeah, so exactly, on the other side. So imagine a river, and on one side, on the west side is Bhandup and the bird sanctuary, and on the east is this coastal, it's called the Coastal and Marine Biodiversity Center. And that I think is super new in terms of, it always existed, the ecosystem always existed, but I think the forest department and there's also the Marine and Biodiversity Center, I think, the mangrove cell, all of these new organizations have now taken over responsibility to actually look after the mangroves. And they form a very, very important part of the whole intertidal. So that's what I think the larger term is, the intertidal zone, where the tides come in, and then when it's low tide, a lot of this area is exposed. So all of that is then you have mangroves, and you have a completely different ecosystem, an intertidal ecosystem. So Keshav was talking about one part. Imagine just 2 banks of a river. On the other bank is the Coastal and Marine Biodiversity Center, and it's a great place. So I think from South Mumbai, if you're starting from say Kulaba, if you leave early in the morning, in an hour or an hour and 15 minutes, if you're driving, you can be at either of these places. And they have a whole nature walk where someone from the mangrove cell will come and explain the way in which these mangroves function, why is this zone important, what does it do for the environment, the different creatures that you find there. And then you also have an option of going on a boat ride. So they take you down that river, and this river ultimately, so I looked it up, and it's called the Ulhas River. That's the name of the river. It starts from the Western Ghats, and it flows down, comes towards Mumbai, and then empties into the Arabian Sea. So where that river and the sea kind of meet, all of that is all of these beautiful mangroves in this ecosystem. So that's where the flamingos come actually. And I think I remember he was kind of explaining what they do. This is kind of a pit stop. So he was explaining that because they travel such long distances, it becomes very important that these ecosystems are maintained. Because imagine if you're going on a road trip and suddenly where you planned to make a stop, there is no food, no gas, no water. It's the same thing that happens for these flamingos. They just get stranded. They would probably end up dying if all of these ecosystems were destroyed.
Right.
Yeah, really, really important. Obviously, the flamingos are the crown jewels of both of these parks, right? If you could say that. So a lot of people come to see them. But like to Keshav's earlier point and your point as well, the mangroves are actually what help keep this ecosystem alive and thriving, and also support a lot of these birds and also marine life, right, in the vicinity. And I believe these birds, I don't know, they're coming from or going towards Kutch, I believe. So your pit stop is probably a pit stop en route Kutch or from Kutch towards, I don't know where they're headed to. And also these mangroves, right, going back to them, they actually also help protect the city from flooding, right, during high tides and things like that. So that way, it's really, really important and really heartening to hear that there's actually work being done to preserve and conserve these. Flamingo safari now from the SGNP train rides and the nature there. I think the flamingo safari and the mangroves is a good way to kind of check out some of the nature within the city, right, without even having to travel too far. Any other points between these two guys that you want to touch upon, or are we good to move to the next stop?
So what I'm observing is we've covered a train ride in SGNP. We've now covered a boat ride at the Flamingo Sanctuary. We need to cover some sort of other mode of transport in our next story.
Or a Victoria. Actually, the next part, if we do Alibag, is also a boat ride only.
Let's do Alibag. So I'll take that, Keshav, because very recently Sakina and I did one day trip. I think we did a 2-night thing. In fact, we stayed for 2 nights at a place in Alibag, and we found some really cool places. So the first one I'd love to talk about, it's called Colaba Fort. Mm-hmm. And once you get off the Roro, or once you get off your boat, you have to still take an auto. If you don't have your own car or your mode of transport, you'll have to go down further south, I think say about 25-30 kilometers until you reach Alibag. It may be a little less also. I don't know the exact distance. Now, once you're in Alibag and you ask, you can ask anyone, and Colaba Fort, everyone will know. So this fort is in the middle of the ocean. And when it's low tide, you can walk. It's accessible by foot, and you can walk from the beach right up to the fort. Oh, wow. And you should try and get back when it's low tide. Else, there are also horse carts. So you can sit and you'll have all these guys, there you have the regular beach stuff like those quad bikes and people selling whatever, cotton candy, bale, this, that. It's a regular beach scene. But the walk to this fort when it's low tide, it's beautiful. Mm-hmm. So about knee-deep high water, that's how deep it gets. And you can actually see the bottom. So it's very safe. I don't think Alibag really has any jellyfish scares or anything like that. It's pretty safe. Lots of people around. So no worries if you have kids, and no worries of them, doing something stupid. Mm-hmm. You can walk there. I think it's about 15-20 minutes, maybe half an hour walking into the ocean. You can spend about half an hour at the fort and then walk back. So that's easily half a day. Mm-hmm. You can time it. One word of advice is check out the tide times, and if you can time your visit to the fort, you will be able to do it during low tide, so you can walk both ways. Otherwise, you'll have to take the horse carts.
I think that experience, you don't really get to hear about that as often, right? Like you literally can walk to a fort that's almost in the sea, in the ocean. But yeah, there's a little bit of a risk that you have to manage your timing better. But I think that thrill also adds to it. And Colaba Fort is what you said that, right? I believe it's about 300-year-old fort that's been in the area. So definitely do check that out.
Wow, okay.
Yeah, and there's another fort also in the vicinity. I don't know if you had a chance to visit this, Hussein, but Murud Janjira Fort is another one I hear. But apparently this is...
Murud Janjira.
Right.
Yeah, yes. That is further south, and I don't think that... I've been to Murud Janjira many years back, and it is beautiful because though I don't think that one is accessible by foot. I think you have to take a small sailboat from the shore, and it's further deep out into the ocean, Murud Janjira.
Okay.
Yeah, so one more quick fort is in from Alibag, but further south. It's called Korlai Fort, Korlai. So there is a fort and there's also a lighthouse. Now, recently when we'd gone, the lighthouse was shut because of COVID. But I think in normal times, they let people in and they let you ascend up and look at it and all. But the fort there again, it's a trek. So it's almost, like a small part of land that juts out. And you have to trek up to the fort. Not a very long trek, about 15-20 minutes. And beautiful views from up there.
And I think if we start covering off the forts in and around Mumbai and the area, there's so many that we'll probably do a season on it, not even an episode on it. So yeah, that's the thing. Any other points within Alibag, Husein or Keshav, that you folks covered off?
So when I was growing up in Bombay, I don't know if it's like every part of the country has this joke, because this is before mental health was taboo, right? When we were growing up, what is mental health? Like what? Like nothing. He's nuts. Like that's it. Oh, he's mental. Like that's how it was, right?
Yeah.
So in such times in the 90s, Alibag, if you behaved funny, if you said something stupid, it'd be like, okay, you need to go to Alibag because Alibag was the asylum.
Oh.
That's where the mental health hospital was. So in PC times, you can't make those jokes, but yeah. So the common phrase in Bombay would have been, if you said something dumb or stupid or something like that, the phrase in Bombay would have been, "Kya tu Alibag se aaya hai kya?"
Oh, okay.
Have you come from
Alibag,
Alibag?
yeah.
Did you just run away from the mental asylum? Is literally what you're being asked.
And the version I have always used is if you're trying to fool someone. Okay, so if I tell Keshav, for example, Keshav, give me 100 rupees. Tomorrow I'll multiply that 10 times and give you a bar of gold. I just exaggerate. Keshav would tell me, तुझे लगता है मैं अलीबाग से आया हूँ क्या?
No.
You think I'm so stupid that I've come from Alibag?
Right.
That was the...
Oh, nice.
Yeah, interesting. But yeah, I think apart from these, a few good beaches as well. I hear the Alibag Beach, Kihim Beach, and Mandwa Beach was other places that was listed on as perhaps if you're there for a longer time, you could definitely cover those off as well. But one interesting tidbit I heard about this, guys, or read about this, guys, was I was just wondering, like, Alibag, who was this Ali? And apparently this is Bene Israeli Jews settlement from over 2,000 years ago. And somebody called as a wealthy, I guess, native there called Eli, right? Native Jewish name. And he had like big farms and mango farms and coconut farms and stuff like that. So Eli Chi Bag, that's how they used to call the area.
Wow.
And then, just in translation, it finally came down to Ali Bag. Right, so that was a interesting tidbit about while I was reading up for this, it's not like I would have known about this, but I was just wondering like who this is.
It's a great bit of trivia.
Yeah. Now, having spent some time here, now this is one of the other options. We did cover off the nature bits in the earlier part. Now this is more of the beach or mini Goa type of getaway from Mumbai, right? That one could enjoy some time on a weekend. Any other variations of these quick getaway trips from Mumbai that you'd like to call out?
I'm thinking, Keshav, as a concluding thing to do, probably the most accessible, I think what I've realized is the shore walks, which is right there. You don't need any gear, you don't need anything, you just need feet to kind of walk and explore the shores. So do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, I mean, before that, I think maybe that's a good concluding thing, but I just want to talk about one secret little nugget which I thought was the BPT park.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so that is, I think, something that I just came across. I've not read about it anywhere. I came across it just on the maps, right? I was looking at at Google Maps and I said, what is this little piece of green or a park on the coast? So you won't believe, it's called the Bombay Port Trust. BPT is acronym for Bombay Port Trust. So this is called the BPT Park, and as the crow flies, it's not more than 500 meters maybe from Gateway of India.
Oh wow, okay.
So it's in a very densely, lots of tourists go, lots of people visit this part of the city.
Right.
However, nobody ever talks about this park, which is a beautifully maintained park, and it has ocean front. That too on the eastern seaboard. We see a lot of action on the western seafront in Bombay, like marine drives. These are celebrated parts, right?
Mm-hmm.
We're not going to talk about the marine drive on this, right? Because that's a done thing. Everybody does that. This is on the opposite side,
Right.
and it is just this little tucked away pocket, and there's nothing really there, not much apart from the vantage point that if you're sitting there, you can see ships, you can see boats. On a clear day, you may even be able to see Elephanta Island.
Oh.
So that's it. I just wanted to touch upon that. So if you're in the neighborhood, a lot of people go to Colaba for shopping, or they go to the Gateway of India, let's say.
Yep.
This is a little secret part.
And it's called the BPT Park, right? That's what it's
Yeah.
called. So definitely check it out. And just while we are at the seashore, this one is a sea-facing park, like you said, right? The other seashore, the shore walks that Husein, you were referring to, do you want to start touching upon those as well?
Yeah. So I'd really like to, call out this one organization. Rather, it's a group of people.
Mm-hmm.
It's called Marine Life of Mumbai. And they are on Instagram as well. Marine Life of Mumbai. That's their handle. The reason this initiative started was because of so if you're aware, there's the whole coastal road that's being built.
Mm-hmm.
It's trying to connect the south and the north part of the city other than from inside the city. So they're trying to create a whole road that runs parallel to the coast.
Mm-hmm.
Now, because of this road, there's a lot of displacement of the shores, of the seashores.
Mm-hmm.
That's a lot of the western seashore. So all of your, it's starting from Juhu, Bandra, all of these places, Chopati Beach, all of these places have a lot of marine life right there for people to explore. And the reason why this initiative started was just to document life that exists on these shores, so that you can make a case that it's not like you're not destroying anything. By building this road, you are destroying and displacing lots of species of sea life and coral and all of that. So that's how this initiative started. Now slowly it's kind of mushroomed into this whole almost movement where they take people on shore walks in order to familiarize them with the richness that the shore, and this is right off the, you don't even need to take a boat or anything. You just walk on the coast and you can see these different kinds of corals. So Keshav and I, we've seen sea snakes right there.
Yeah.
We've seen sea anemones, squid eggs.
Beautiful colored sea snakes, like blue and brown, blue and black. I mean, it is unbelievable. Like, all you have to do is time your walk. Wait for a...
Yeah.
Is it a new moon or a low tide on a new moon?
Low
right?
tide.
Ideal.
Low tide, yeah.
So you get the most amount of walking into the water.
Right.
Into the sea, yeah. So I think those are things that you can do that's a luxury you have if you're living in the city. Of course, you can't time your trip based on a new moon, low tide on a new moon. But there is a lot of other such cultural nature or / cultural activities also.
And this is through Marine Life of Mumbai. Husein, that you mentioned that you did this, or can one just do it by his or herself too?
It's, if you're doing it for the first time, probably you should recommend it that you do it either through them
Right.
or, and they host free walks, so it's
Yeah,
fully
it's not for
voluntary.
money.
Recommended that you do it through them, only because you understand, because they are all about educating, and they tell you if you want to do it on your own. I have chatted with them so many times on Instagram, and they recommend that if you've explored Chopati, try and go to Juhu, try and go to Priyadarshini Park. They are all about recommending, and they want people to start going out and exploring on their own.
Yeah, interesting. So definitely something to check out. And I guess if you're a lazy bum who thinks 100 times before doing any of the other trips, even though they're quick trips, quick getaways from Mumbai, then this one is obviously the one for you. You just have to get out of your bed and do a little bit of walking on the seashore. Nothing beyond that. So definitely check that out. But yeah, I think it just goes back to reiterate the whole point, right? At least even from an outsider's perspective, like I said at the beginning, we or I look at Mumbai just in terms of that, right? Bollywood and the stock markets, the financial hub, the people, the hustle, concrete jungle. Like those are some of the hashtags that kind of trend in my head. Whenever I think of Mumbai. But there's so much more beyond these, and that's why I was kind of eager to have this conversation as well. It's so much, given its strategic location as well. Mumbai is so much more beyond that. Obviously, these things happened also perhaps because of the strategic location, but even just in terms of nature, right, from the like the shorelines that we spoke of to the natural parks, the treks one can indulge in. There's so many different things one can do while in Mumbai, and also calls out the importance of preserving and conserving all of these things also, right? Because all of it that is maintained now is that ecological balance that's been maintained now is because of these other things that are, you could say, the unseen, right? They are not very evident, but it's very, very important. And hats off to a lot of these organizations that are doing it either voluntarily. And I mean, even if you're paying for them, you should actually care about it, right? Because they're doing so much, even in the longer term, that will make an impact, that will make a difference. So thank you so much for calling that out. And thank you for both of you. I know this episode might have been a little bit of a bland episode, I could say, for you guys, because your episodes are usually a lot of giggles, a lot of laughing.
No, man.
But
no, this is a lot of fun. But I just want to actually mention one thing that I just thought of. We had not discussed it, but while you were saying this, things like development and things like coexisting, I feel like it's important to mention one thing about Bombay, and which is the slums.
Right.
It's almost like the elephant in the room. So I feel like it'll be nice if you just touch upon it, in the sense that 1 in 2 Mumbaiites is a person who lives in a slum.
Okay.
So it's a big number.
Right.
And now, thanks to Slumdog Millionaire, most recently, things like Dharavi tours. Dharavi is like it's one of the biggest slums in the world.
Yeah.
And how it is self-sufficient, how it is independent, how it has all these cottage industries, and how people do walking tours of that. And that is something that became popular, that became exploitative almost in that sense, again, where you do these walking tours. But what I'm trying to point out is that you can do this yourself also. All it takes is a little bit of curiosity.
Right.
You don't be afraid of walking into a slum.
Yeah.
Just walk in, break that barrier. It's invisible. There is nothing there. It's just a class divide.
Yeah.
Just walk in, and then it's okay. The part of the city. It's part of the city.
yeah.
Yeah, it's nice to call that out. Yeah, seriously.
Wonderful. Thank you, guys. I think before we start kind of wrapping this up, is there any final thoughts, final call-outs on other places? I know we did a little bit of offbeat Mumbai in this episode, but again, it's only scratching the surface, right? There's so much more. Even only from looking at it from an outdoors and nature perspective also. There's so much more beyond this. But any final shout outs that you'd like to give?
I think shout out to you guys because
Yeah.
and it's really Keshav and I, we have not a lot of the exploring that we used to do was before the podcast. Since the podcast started, most of our time together on the weekends is recording episodes and editing.
Yeah.
So this has actually given us a chance to kind of relive our old day trips. And then thank you, like, for all the kind words you praised us with in the beginning. Thank you so much. It's good to get validation from listeners, but getting validation from other podcasters, it's something else.
Yeah,
Thank
totally
you.
not scripted. Disclaimer. But yeah, no, thank you. It's always a pleasure to talk to you. I mean,
No, man, this was fun.
No, we enjoy doing
fun.
this. So, it's just so much fun. Thank you.
pleasure.
Yeah, thank you so much, guys. And it actually feels like, I don't know, somehow I'm exploring a different aspect of Bombay
Yeah, almost like
and
a different
Mumbai.
city.
Yeah, which has so much to offer.
Yeah, because there is a lot more. We don't want to be apologetic about the fact that all those problems exist. But
True,
if you look past that, there is plenty more.
Yeah.
Just have to look for it. I read there was a timeout ad came across once. Sorry, I'm cutting you, but it said, be a tourist in your own city. It's such a beautiful idea.
Seriously. So yeah, I hope this episode helps and
Also
inspires someone.
the other benefit of that is it's kind on your pocket also, right? You don't have to shell out money on expensive meals and places to live in and stuff like that. So yeah, go local, I guess. Thank you so much for.
So, Seth, one last remark about it being light on your pocket.
Yeah.
If you're in Mumbai and you have to take someone out on a date,
Yeah.
go to the zoo, go to the Baikala Zoo. It's 10 rupees entry, okay? 10 rupees entry.
It's a
And
great place.
It's a great place. You'll thank me later.
Yeah. I'm curious to ask you now, did you take Sakina there for the date, Husein?
Yeah, I did.
Okay. In that
And look
case,
at them now, and
Yeah,
look at
tried
them
and
now.
tested. Definitely works.
Yes.
10 rupees. So lovely.
And you can make all your animal jokes once you're in. So you are progressing. It's a setup.
So thanks so much, guys. It was fun, and we'll obviously link everything in the show notes as well as to where people can check out your podcast as well as follow you on social media. But lovely talking to you, like we've been repeating over and over again. It's just great to actually have these conversations with fellow podcasters who we share not just that idea of self-expression, and also it's almost like we live dual lives a lot of the time. So it's always good to catch up with you folks and discuss some of the things we all care about so much. So thank you so much, and looking forward to chatting more and following you folks on the podcast.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Same here. Thank you so much. This was so much fun.
That was yet another great episode on the Musafir Stories. Make sure to show us some love by sharing the podcast with your friends and family. We are on Instagram and Twitter at Musafir Stories. If you like this podcast, don't forget to check out other interesting podcasts on the IVM network. You can listen to us on the IVM Podcast app or the website. Follow us on our social media. We are at IVM Podcasts on Twitter and Instagram.